My wife died whispering a confession that destroyed our entire marriage. My name is Greg Davis, and for 5 years I sacrificed everything, my career, my savings, my future, to save Amanda from terminal cancer. I sold our car, emptied my retirement account, worked 3 jobs while she fought for her life. Our community rallied around us. Thousands of dollars in donations, prayer chains, benefit dinners. Everyone called me the perfect husband. But with her final breath, Amanda whispered 4 words that changed everything. Check the garage, forgive me. I walked to that steel door she'd kept locked for years. When I opened it, I found a compact workspace, fake medical records, bank statements showing hundreds of thousands in hidden assets, and email chains with her doctor, who turned out to be a medical school dropout turned actor. My dying wife had been perfectly healthy. The woman I'd bankrupted myself to save had been running a sophisticated fraud operation from our garage. What would you do? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonates with you, I hope you'll subscribe because what happened next will shock you. Everyone thought I was the perfect husband, maybe too perfect. But let me tell you about the woman I married first. Amanda had been a senior accountant at Riverside Property Management before her illness. She managed portfolios worth millions, could read financial documents like novels, and had this incredible ability to compartmentalize information. Different clients never knew about each other's business. I thought it was a professional skill. Now I realize it was training for the perfect crime. My coworker Jake Miller cornered me at Amanda's funeral. "Greg, I've got to say this," he whispered. "You threw your life away for someone who is already gone. That's not love, man. That's obsession." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I just nodded and walked away. But Jake wasn't alone in his concerns. For months, I'd been getting those looks. The sideways glances at church when I mentioned Amanda's latest treatment costs. The awkward silences when our friends gathered for dinner. Even Amanda's sister Rachel had pulled me aside last Christmas. Rachel, with her Harvard MBA and corner office at a Fortune 500 consulting firm. The family success story that Amanda had always lived in the shadow of. "Amanda's lucky to have such a dedicated husband," Rachel had said, emphasis on dedicated like it was a disease. "Most men would have moved on by now." Moved on? My wife was dying. What kind of monster moves on from that? But there were signs I should have questioned, small things that didn't add up, like how Amanda had enough energy to reorganize our entire basement storage system during her worst weeks, but was too weak to walk to the mailbox when I was around. Or how she always scheduled her treatments on days when I was working, insisting she didn't want to burden me with sitting in waiting rooms. The thing is, I had good reason to be terrified of cancer. Both my parents died from it when I was 28. I watched them fight, I watched them lose, and I swore I'd never let that happen again if I could help it. So when Amanda started having stomach problems in 2018, I was hypervigilant. When she lost weight, I demanded tests. When Dr. Martin Clark diagnosed her with stage 3 pancreatic cancer in 2020, I went into full battle mode. But here's what I didn't know then. Amanda had started this lie because she felt invisible. Rachel was the successful one with the prestigious career and perfect husband. Amanda worked for a mid-level property management company and was married to a simple software engineer. When she first exaggerated those stomach symptoms and saw how completely I focused on her, canceling work meetings, researching specialists, treating her like the most important person in the world, she got addicted to that feeling. The woman who'd spent her whole life feeling second best suddenly became the center of everything. By 2022, I was working 3 jobs to keep up with medical bills. Uber driver in the mornings, freelance coding in the afternoons, night shift at McDonald's. I'd sold my 2019 Audi A4 for $35,000, cashed out my 401k for another $48,000, took a second mortgage for $60,000 more. But there were moments that should have made me question everything, like finding Amanda researching property investment strategies on her laptop, which she quickly closed when I entered the room. "Just trying to understand our finances," she'd said. Or the time I came home early from work and found her on a business call, speaking with authority about quarterly projections and market analysis. When she saw me, she quickly switched to a weak, tired voice. "Sorry, honey. I was just trying to understand our insurance benefits." The signs were there. I just chose to interpret them as a sick woman trying to help manage our crisis rather than a healthy woman managing a criminal operation. Love made me blind, but desperation made me stupid. Standing outside that garage door at 3:15 a.m., I knew my life balanced on a knife's edge. If I opened it and found nothing suspicious, I could grieve normally. Remember Amanda as the brave woman who fought cancer with grace. Keep our love story intact. But if I found something that changed everything, what then? The financial devastation was already complete. Our house had a foreclosure notice. 60 days to pay $127,000 in back payments or lose everything. My credit score had dropped from 780 to 520. I had $847 in my checking account and was sleeping on my brother's couch because I couldn't afford rent anywhere. But there was something worse than financial ruin. If Amanda had been lying, I'd have to decide whether to expose her, whether to destroy the memory everyone had of her, whether to admit to the world that I'd been a fool. Our community had rallied around us. Pastor Williams mentioned us in sermons about faith during trials. The local newspaper ran a feature story. Local couples fight against cancer inspires community. If Amanda had been faking it, I wasn't just the fool. I was the fool who'd accepted charity under false pretenses. And here's what really scared me. Part of me was proud of what I'd done. Proud of being the man who never gave up. It was the best thing about me. Maybe the only thing that mattered. If Amanda had been lying, then my greatest strength became my greatest weakness. But Amanda's last words kept playing in my head. Check the garage, forgive me. She'd wanted me to know. Whatever was behind that door, she'd wanted me to find it. I pulled the handle and stepped inside. The garage light revealed a compact but sophisticated workspace tucked in the far corner. Not Amanda's craft area, a business operation. Small filing cabinet, laptop, high-quality printer, carefully organized documents. This wasn't the chaotic mess of someone hiding evidence. This was the methodical workspace of someone running a business. I opened the laptop. No password. Like she'd been expecting me. The desktop had folders by year, 2018 through 2023. Each contained hundreds of files I'd never seen. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know existed. Property documents. Business correspondence. But the folder that made my hands shake was labeled MC, Performance Notes. I clicked it open. Email after email between Amanda and someone named Martin Clark. But these weren't medical consultations. They were rehearsal instructions. Martin, you seemed uncertain about the prognosis yesterday. Greg noticed. Remember, you're delivering devastating news, not ordering lunch. Study the oncology videos I sent. Hey, Amanda, I need the script for next week's appointment. Also, my rent's due Thursday. MC. My vision blurred. I had to read it again. Dr. Martin Clark wasn't a doctor. He was an actor. And Amanda was his director. I kept scrolling through the emails, each one revealing another layer of the deception. MC, background info, contained a detailed file on Martin Clark. Age 34, studied pre-med at State University for 2 years before switching to theater arts. Graduated but struggled to find steady acting work. Behind on student loans, eviction notices, desperate for income. Perfect target for Amanda's recruitment. The first email was dated March 2020. Martin, saw your Craigslist ad for acting gigs. I have a long-term role that pays well if you can handle medical terminology. Interested? A. 3 years. She'd been planning this for 3 years. I found a folder labeled Research, containing dozens of medical articles about pancreatic cancer, symptom timelines, treatment protocols, patient testimonials. Amanda had studied this disease like she was earning a degree in it. Another folder, Financial Planning, spreadsheets showing projected income from my sacrifices cross-referenced with real estate investment opportunities. She'd calculated exactly how much money my devotion would generate, then planned how to invest it for maximum return. This wasn't emotional manipulation that got out of hand. This was a business plan. My hands shook as I found Martin Clark's phone number, the same number I'd called hundreds of times, checking on Amanda's test results. I dialed. Hello? The voice was familiar but different. Casual. No medical authority. Dr. Clark, this is Greg Davis. Long pause. Oh, Greg. How can I help you? Amanda died 3 days ago. I heard. I'm sorry for your loss. I need her medical records for insurance. Another pause. That's complicated right now. Why? Look, Greg, maybe we should... Where's your office located? Silence. I've been there dozens of times, Dr. Clark. Where is it? It's... Martin. I used his first name deliberately. We need to talk. The line went dead. I called back immediately, straight to voicemail. Hi, this is Martin. I'm probably at an audition. Leave a message. Not Dr. Martin Clark. Just Martin, an actor between gigs. I went back to the emails and found the payment records. Amanda had paid Martin $47,000 over 3 years, $2,000 per month for his performances, plus bonuses for particularly convincing sessions. But there was more. Location details for their meetings. The address I knew as Riverside Oncology Center was actually Executive Suite Rentals, a business center that rented office space by the hour. Amanda had been paying $200 per session to use Conference Room B, which she decorated with fake medical equipment and diplomas. I grabbed my keys and drove there immediately. At 4 a.m., the building was dark, but I could see through the windows. Generic office furniture. No medical equipment. No patient waiting area. Just empty conference rooms available for hourly rental. I'd spent 3 years dropping my wife off at a fake cancer center. Back home, I searched deeper through Amanda's files. Found her real appointment calendar hidden behind password protection. While I thought she was getting chemotherapy, she was meeting with real estate agents, property managers, contractors. The woman who was too weak to grocery shop had been energetic enough to manage multiple business ventures. But here's what made me realize I wasn't completely powerless. Amanda had been sloppy about covering her tracks with people who actually mattered. My college roommate Sarah Wilson worked for the FBI's white-collar crime division. I found an email exchange between Sarah and Amanda from last year that made everything clear. Amanda, great seeing you at lunch yesterday. That new property on Maple Street sounds like a solid investment. Just curious, how are you managing real estate purchases while dealing with medical expenses? The math seems challenging. Sarah, Greg doesn't know about the properties yet. I want to surprise him when I beat this thing. Please keep it between us for now. Amanda. Sarah had been investigating Amanda, not as my friend, but as a federal agent who'd spotted financial irregularities. I found another email thread with Tom Rodriguez from our church. Tom's a forensic accountant, and Amanda had been meeting with him regularly, but not for the reason I'd assumed. Tom, thanks for reviewing my insurance claims. Your analysis was very helpful. Amanda, I have to ask, some of these treatment costs seem unusually high. Have you gotten second opinions on pricing? Tom hadn't been helping Amanda commit fraud. He'd been gathering evidence of it. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Greg, I know this is a difficult time. When you're ready to talk, call me, day or night. I stared at the message. Then I looked at the timestamp on Amanda's last email to Sarah. March 10th, 5 days before Amanda died. Sarah, I think Greg is getting suspicious. If anything happens to me, there's something in the garage he needs to see. Amanda. Amanda knew she was caught. Sarah had been closing in on her for months. Is that why Amanda had the stroke? Because she realized the FBI was about to expose everything? I found Amanda's real medical records in a file labeled Actual Health, regular checkups with Dr. Jennifer Hayes, our family physician. Normal blood pressure, cholesterol, everything healthy, except for one detail I'd missed. A note from Dr. Hayes dated February 2023. Patient exhibiting signs of chronic stress. Elevated cortisol levels. Recommends stress management counseling. Patient declined. Amanda had been stressed to the breaking point, managing her double life. The fake illness that was supposed to solve her problems had created bigger ones. I had evidence. I had allies in law enforcement. And I had Amanda's own confession. Check the garage. She'd wanted me to find this. But why? As I dug deeper into Amanda's files, I realized she'd been planning her exit strategy. Hidden in a folder labeled Future Plans was a detailed timeline. By December 2023, she planned to have a miraculous recovery that would let her return to normal life. By March 2024, she'd convinced me to move to Florida for her health, where she'd already purchased a $400,000 beachfront condo under a shell company name. Amanda hadn't planned to live with this lie forever. She'd planned to disappear with the money. But her stroke on March 15th had ended everything before she could execute her escape plan. I found evidence that Amanda had been studying my behavior too. A notebook filled with observations about my reactions to her symptoms. Notes like, Greg most responsive when I appear weak but hopeful, and crying during treatment discussions triggers his maximum financial generosity. She'd been conducting psychological experiments on me. But as I read through more recent documents, I discovered something Amanda hadn't counted on. She wasn't the only one gathering evidence. Sarah Wilson had been building a federal case since August 2022. I found copies of subpoenas Amanda had received, requesting bank records for all her accounts. Insurance companies had flagged her claims for unusual patterns. The IRS was auditing her unreported rental income. Amanda hadn't died from the stress of maintaining her lie. She'd died from the stress of knowing she was about to be caught. My phone rang. Sarah Wilson. Greg, I saw the lights on at your house. Are you okay? I'm in the garage. Stay right there. I'm coming over. 30 minutes later, Sarah arrived with Tom Rodriguez. They both looked like they'd been expecting this call. How long have you known? I asked. Sarah set down a thick folder. Officially? We opened the investigation 8 months ago when insurance companies reported unusual claim patterns. Unofficially, I've been worried about your situation for over a year. Why didn't you tell me? Because we needed proof, Tom said. And because fraud victims often protect their abusers, especially spouses. We had to let you discover the truth yourself. Sarah opened her folder. Greg, Amanda's case is part of a larger investigation into insurance fraud. She stole $267,000 from insurance companies, plus whatever she took from you personally. She didn't take from me, I said. I gave it willingly. Based on fraudulent medical claims, Tom corrected. That makes it theft by deception, which is a federal crime. I looked around the garage workspace. So what happens now? Now you have choices, Sarah said. You can cooperate with our investigation and help us recover the stolen funds, or you can walk away and let Amanda's estate keep the money. What kind of recovery are we talking about? Tom pulled out a financial analysis. Amanda owned 3 rental properties worth approximately $600,000. She had $90,000 in various bank accounts. Investment portfolio worth another $67,000. I did the math. That's more than she stole. Real estate appreciated, Tom said. Amanda was actually a skilled investor. If you cooperate with asset forfeiture, you'll recover most of your losses and help other fraud victims. Sarah leaned forward. There's something else, Greg. Amanda's not the only person running this type of scam. We've identified at least 12 similar cases in the past 2 years. Your testimony could help us stop others. I thought about all the people who'd donated to Amanda's care, church members who'd organized fundraisers, co-workers who'd contributed to our GoFundMe. They deserve to know the truth. What about Martin Clark? We arrested him this morning, Sarah said. He's cooperating fully. Turns out Amanda recruited him when he was facing eviction. She offered him steady income to play a doctor, and he was desperate enough to say yes. Is he going to prison? Probably 2 years, with possibility of reduced sentence for cooperation. He never wanted to hurt anyone, Greg. He just needed money, and got in over his head. Tom showed me another document. There's one more thing. The life insurance policy Amanda took out last year, the insurance company is fighting the claim due to fraud. If they win, you won't receive any death benefits. How much? $200,000. Amanda had been planning to fake her death too, take out a large life insurance policy, then die while actually escaping to Florida with her new identity. The stroke had simply accelerated a timeline she'd already set in motion. So what do you need from me? I asked. Sarah smiled grimly. We need you to help us expose the truth, publicly, in a way that prevents other people from becoming victims. The memorial service is tomorrow. Perfect venue, Tom said. 200 potential witnesses to Amanda's crimes. I looked at Amanda's laptop, filled with evidence of 3 years of systematic deception. She'd wanted me to check the garage. She'd wanted me to find the truth. Maybe it was time to give her what she'd asked for. The memorial service was set for 2 p.m. at St. Mary's Community Center. I had 18 hours to decide how to use the evidence I'd found. I spent the morning creating a presentation, screenshots of Amanda's bank statements, copies of her emails with Martin Clark, property deeds showing her real estate empire, a timeline comparing her treatment dates with her actual business meetings. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice for everyone she'd deceived. Sarah Wilson arrived at noon with a federal warrant. Greg, we have legal authority to seize Amanda's fraudulent assets, but we need public disclosure to prevent similar crimes. What about the people attending? They loved Amanda. They loved a lie, Tom Rodriguez said, joining us. And that lie cost them money, time, and emotional investment. They deserve to know the truth. I thought about Rachel, Amanda's sister, who'd driven in from Boston to deliver the eulogy. She'd spent weeks preparing a speech about Amanda's courage and my extraordinary devotion. Rachel had no idea she was about to praise a criminal operation. At 1:30, I arrived at St. Mary's. The fellowship hall was decorated with white lilies and photos from Amanda's cancer journey. Pictures I'd taken of her looking appropriately weak and hopeful, images that now looked like evidence of performance art. Rachel was setting up her notes at the podium, wearing a designer black dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She'd always been the successful sister. Harvard MBA, corner office, perfect husband. Amanda had spent her whole life feeling inferior to Rachel's achievements. "Greg, you look exhausted," Rachel said, hugging me. "Are you ready for this?" "More ready than you know." People started arriving early, the hall filled with faces from every part of our life. Church members who'd prayed for Amanda's healing. Neighbors who'd organized meal trains during her worst days. Co-workers who'd contributed to medical bills. Dr. Jennifer Hayes sat in the third row. She'd been Amanda's real doctor, the one who'd given her clean bills of health while Amanda was supposedly dying of cancer. At 2 p.m. sharp, Pastor Williams called everyone to attention. "We're here to celebrate the life of Amanda Davis, a woman who faced terminal illness with grace and dignity." Rachel approached the podium, elegant and composed. "Amanda showed us what real courage looks like," she began. "Fighting cancer while maintaining hope. And her husband Greg showed us what real love looks like, sacrificing everything for the person you care about most." The crowd murmured appreciation. I saw people wiping their eyes, thinking about my devotion. "Greg sold his car, emptied his retirement account, worked 3 jobs to pay for Amanda's treatments," Rachel continued. "He never gave up hope, never stopped fighting for her." She was painting me as a hero for being the perfect victim. "Amanda often felt guilty about the financial burden," Rachel said, her voice breaking slightly. "But Greg always told her that money meant nothing compared to her life." I stood up. The room went quiet. 200 pairs of eyes focused on me. Rachel paused mid-sentence. "Greg, are you okay?" I walked to the front of the room and set Amanda's laptop on the podium. "I need to share something with all of you," I said. "Something that changes everything we thought we knew about Amanda's illness." Rachel stepped back. "Greg, what are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth." I opened the laptop and turned the screen toward the audience. Amanda's Wells Fargo bank statement filled the projection screen. $89,000 in savings, while I'd been working at McDonald's to afford rent. "Amanda wasn't dying of cancer," I said. "She was perfectly healthy, and she was using your donations and my sacrifices to build a real estate empire." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people stood up to get a better view. Others looked confused, like they hadn't heard correctly. "Greg, you're grieving," Rachel said. "You're not thinking clearly." I clicked to the next document. Email chain between Amanda and Martin Clark. Dr. Martin Clark, Amanda's oncologist, is actually a medical school dropout named Martin Clark who Amanda paid $47,000 to pretend to be her doctor. The room erupted. People talking over each other, some standing, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Pastor Williams approached the podium. "Greg, perhaps we should—" "No." I clicked to the property deeds. 847 Maple Street, 123 Oak Avenue, 456 Pine Road, 3 rental properties Amanda bought with money intended for her medical treatments. A voice from the back shouted, "This is impossible." "What's impossible," said a new voice, "is insurance fraud on this scale." Everyone turned. FBI Special Agent Sarah Wilson was walking down the center aisle, badge visible. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Agent Wilson with the FBI. We've been investigating Amanda Davis for insurance fraud for the past 8 months. Complete silence. You could hear the air conditioning. Sarah joined me at the podium. "Mrs. Davis submitted fraudulent insurance claims totaling $267,000 for cancer treatments that never occurred." Dr. Hayes stood up. "Agent Wilson, I was Amanda's primary care physician for 8 years. Her medical records show no evidence of cancer. Ever." More gasps. Someone in the middle section called out, "What about our donations?" Tom Rodriguez stood up from where he'd been sitting near the back. "I'm Tom Rodriguez, forensic accountant. I've been working with the FBI to trace Amanda's financial crimes." The pieces were falling into place for everyone to see. "How much?" someone yelled. "Mrs. Davis diverted approximately $267,000 in medical funds to real estate investments," Tom announced. "This includes insurance payouts, community donations, and Mr. Davis's personal contributions." Jake Miller, my coworker who'd criticized my devotion, stood up. "Greg, did you know? I found out 3 days ago when Amanda's dying words were, 'Check the garage, forgive me.'" The memorial service for a cancer hero was becoming the exposure of a sophisticated criminal, and I was no longer the fool who'd loved too much. I was the victim who'd found the courage to seek justice. The crowd was processing what they'd heard, but I wasn't finished. "There's more. I said, clicking to Amanda's real appointment calendar. While you thought she was getting chemotherapy, Amanda was meeting with real estate agents and property managers. The woman who was too weak to grocery shop was somehow healthy enough to manage multiple business ventures. Rachel's face had gone white. But I saw her. She was thin, weak. She lost weight through controlled dieting, Tom Rodriguez explained. Our investigation shows Amanda studied real cancer patients extensively. She knew exactly how to mimic the physical symptoms. Sarah Wilson stepped forward with her official folder. Mr. Davis contacted us this morning with evidence that corroborates our federal investigation. Amanda Davis ran a sophisticated fraud operation for over 3 years. She looked at the crowd. Many of you donated money, organized fundraisers, provided emotional support during what you believed was Amanda's battle with terminal cancer. I know this is shocking. Mayor Thompson stood up from the front row. Agent Wilson, what's the extent of the financial fraud? $267,000 in fraudulent insurance claims. Approximately $35,000 in community donations. Mr. Davis's personal losses exceed $180,000. Someone near the back did the math out loud. That's almost $500,000. The properties Amanda purchased with stolen funds have appreciated to over $600,000, Tom added. She was actually a skilled real estate investor. Pastor Williams looked stunned. But Amanda came to me for prayer counseling about her fear of dying. She seemed genuinely terrified. She was terrified, Sarah said, but not of cancer. Our investigation shows that by January 2023, Amanda knew federal agents were closing in. She was planning to fake a miraculous recovery and disappear to Florida. I pulled up another document. Amanda had already purchased a beachfront condo in Sarasota under a shell company. She planned to convince me to move there for her health, then assume a new identity. Dr. Hayes raised her hand. Agent Wilson, if Amanda was healthy, how did she die? Stroke brought on by chronic stress, Sarah replied. Amanda had been living under extreme psychological pressure, maintaining this elaborate deception while knowing law enforcement was investigating her. Her real medical records show elevated cortisol levels and untreated hypertension. The irony hit the room hard. The woman who'd faked a terminal illness had died from the stress of her own lies. What about Dr. Clark? Someone called out. Martin Clark was arrested this morning, Sarah announced. He's a 34-year-old actor who dropped out of medical school after 2 years. Amanda recruited him when he was facing eviction, offering steady income to impersonate a physician. I clicked to the email exchange showing their business relationship. Martin never wanted to hurt anyone. He was desperate for money and got in over his head. But he'll still face federal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud. Rachel finally found her voice. How long has this been going on? 5 years, I said, from the first stomach complaints in 2018 through her actual death last week. The room absorbed this. 5 years of community support, prayers, and fundraisers for a woman who was healthy the entire time. Wait, Jake Miller said. If this was all fake, why did Amanda confess on her deathbed? I looked at Amanda's final email to Sarah Wilson, dated March 10th. Because she knew she was caught. The FBI investigation was closing in. Amanda realized she couldn't escape, so she decided to let me find the evidence myself. Sarah nodded. Amanda's final email to me said, if anything happens to me, there's something in the garage Greg needs to see. She wanted him to discover the truth. But why? Rachel asked. Why would she want to be exposed? Tom Rodriguez consulted his notes. Our psychological profile suggests Amanda had been planning to come clean eventually. The stress of maintaining the deception was destroying her mentally and physically. In her final weeks, she'd begun expressing guilt about the impact on Greg. She left me detailed financial records, I added. Instructions for liquidating her assets and returning money to victims. Amanda spent her last days trying to figure out how to undo the damage she'd caused. Pastor Williams stepped forward. So what happens now? Sarah opened her official briefcase. The FBI will seize all assets purchased with fraudulent funds. Insurance companies will recover their losses. Community donors will be reimbursed, and Mr. Davis will receive compensation for his actual damages. How much recovery? Mayor Thompson asked. After legal fees and restitution, Mr. Davis will receive approximately $350,000, Tom said. This covers his financial losses plus modest compensation for 3 years of fraud victimization. I looked out at the crowd. The faces had changed completely. Confusion and anger had replaced sympathy. But there was something else. relief that the truth was finally out. "I want everyone to know," I said. "This wasn't about revenge against Amanda. She's dead. This is about justice for everyone she deceived and prevention of future fraud." Sarah addressed the crowd directly. "Insurance fraud costs Americans $40 billion annually. Cases like Amanda's are rare in their complexity, but financial manipulation in relationships is more common than people realize." A woman near the middle section stood up. "What are the warning signs?" "Isolation from independent verification," I answered. "Amanda prevented me from talking directly to her doctors, seeing her medical records, or attending treatments. If someone you love starts controlling your access to information about their crisis, ask yourself why." Dr. Hayes added, "Medical red flags include patients who seem to have energy for complex activities, but not simple ones, who refuse to let family members speak with physicians directly, or whose symptoms don't match typical disease progression." Tom Rodriguez raised his hand. "Financial red flags include unexplained income, secretive transactions, or resistance to transparency about medical expenses." The memorial service had become an educational seminar on fraud prevention. Rachel approached the microphone, tears in her eyes. "I owe Greg an apology, and I owe Amanda. I don't know what I owe Amanda anymore." The room fell silent. "My sister wasn't the brave cancer fighter we thought she was," Rachel continued. "But Greg is the good man we always believed him to be. He's the victim here, not the fool." People began standing and applauding, not for Amanda's memory, but for my courage in exposing the truth. The perfect public revelation was complete. 200 witnesses, law enforcement present, media getting the story. Amanda's reputation was destroyed, but justice was served. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just stood at the podium and let the evidence speak for itself. As people began filing out, many stopped to shake my hand or offer support. The dynamic had shifted completely. I was no longer the naive husband who'd sacrificed too much. I was the fraud victim who'd found the strength to seek justice. Jake Miller approached with genuine remorse. "Greg, I owe you an apology. I thought you were enabling Amanda's denial. I had no idea she was manipulating you." "You were right that something was wrong," I said. "I just couldn't see it from the inside." Dr. Hayes joined us. "Greg, I reviewed Amanda's medical files after Agent Wilson contacted me yesterday. She specifically requested that I not copy you on test results, claiming she wanted to deliver medical news personally. Now I understand why," another piece of Amanda's control system revealed. Sarah Wilson approached with official paperwork. "Greg, we need your signature on the asset forfeiture agreements. The FBI will handle liquidating Amanda's properties and recovering the fraudulent funds." "What's the timeline?" "Real estate should sell within 60 days. Insurance companies have already agreed to forgive your medical debt. That's $180,000 in immediate relief." Tom Rodriguez opened his financial recovery folder. "Here's the breakdown. After restitution to insurance companies and community donors, you'll net approximately $350,000. That covers your legitimate losses plus compensation for fraud victimization." I stared at the number. "That's more money than I've ever had." "Amanda was skilled at real estate investment," Tom said. "Unfortunately, she financed it through criminal fraud, but the properties appreciated significantly. You're entitled to recovery for actual damages." Pastor Williams joined our group, looking shaken but supportive. "Greg, the church board will meet this week to discuss how we can support fraud victims going forward. Your courage in speaking up today will help protect other families." "What kind of support?" "Educational programs about financial abuse, warning signs, counseling services for manipulation victims, maybe even a fund to help people recover from domestic fraud." Sarah checked her watch. "Martin Clark is being processed downtown. He's agreed to full cooperation, including testimony about Amanda's recruitment methods and operation structure." "Will he go to prison?" "Probably 18 months, reduced for cooperation." "Greg, I want you to know, Clark never wanted to participate in this fraud. Amanda targeted him when he was facing eviction, desperate for income. She exploited his vulnerability just like she exploited yours." The parallels weren't lost on me. Amanda had found two men in crisis and manipulated both of us for her benefit. As the room emptied, Rachel approached hesitantly. "Greg, I need to understand something. Did Amanda ever love you, or was everything an act?" I thought about the question I'd been avoiding all week. "She loved the version of me that worshipped her," I said. "The devoted husband who sacrificed everything without asking questions. I don't think she loved the real me, the man who might have demanded honesty." Rachel nodded slowly. "Amanda always resented my success. When she got sick,
Suddenly, she was the important one, the one getting attention and sympathy. I think she became addicted to repeat continue being special. But it cost her everything, Rachel said. Her health, her marriage, her life. It cost all of us everything, I corrected. The difference is I'm getting a chance to rebuild. Mayor Thompson returned with 2 city council members. Mr. Davis, the city contributed $3,000 to your support fund. We want that returned to help other families legitimately fighting illness. Of course, every donation should go back to its source, or to people who actually need help.
As the last attendees left, I found myself alone in the fellowship hall with the remnants of Amanda's memorial service. White lilies that had honored a fraud. Photo displays of her fake cancer journey. A podium where I'd just destroyed the reputation of the woman I'd loved for 10 years. But instead of guilt, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. For 3 years I'd carried the weight of Amanda's illness, the fear of losing her, the guilt of never doing enough, the exhaustion of working multiple jobs while caregiving, the shame of borrowing money I couldn't repay. All of that weight was gone. Not because Amanda was dead, but because Amanda had never been sick. Sarah returned with 2 other agents. Greg, we'll need to search the garage officially tomorrow. Tonight's discovery was preliminary. We'll catalog everything for evidence. Take whatever you need. There's one more thing, Tom said, handing me a business card. Dataflow Corp called me directly. Your former boss wants you back. They're offering a promotion, senior software architect position, $115,000 annually, plus a signing bonus to help with your transition. I'd gone from unemployed and $180,000 in debt to financially stable with a better job than I'd left. My phone buzzed with text messages. From my former boss, saw the news. Your job is here whenever you're ready. We should never have accepted your resignation. From my brother, you did the right thing, Greg. Mom and Dad would be proud. From a stranger, read your story online. Thank you for having the courage to speak up. My husband has been faking a disability for 2 years. You gave me strength to investigate. As I drove home, I passed the 3 rental properties Amanda had bought with fraudulent funds. 847 Maple Street, 123 Oak Avenue, 456 Pine Road, houses I'd unknowingly financed through night shifts at McDonald's, properties that would soon be liquidated to repay everyone Amanda had stolen from, including me. But I realized something important. I wasn't angry at Amanda anymore. I understood her. She'd grown up feeling invisible, overshadowed by Rachel's success. When my overwhelming love for her sick persona taught her that illness gave her power over me that health never had, she became addicted to that control. The deception that started as attention-seeking had evolved into criminal fraud because Amanda couldn't figure out how to return to normal life without losing my devotion. In a twisted way, Amanda had become a victim of her own lie. The stress of maintaining such elaborate deception had literally killed her. I kept one photo of Amanda on my dashboard, not from her cancer journey, but from our wedding day. Healthy, happy, genuinely smiling. Before the lies began, that was the woman I'd married. The woman I chose to remember. The devoted husband who'd sacrificed everything for a lie had become the fraud victim who'd fought back with truth. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't tired. The story exploded across local and national media within hours. Local woman's 3-year cancer fraud exposed at own memorial service led the Tribune's front page Tuesday morning. By afternoon, CNN had picked up the story. By evening, I was getting interview requests from major networks. The phone calls were relentless, reporters wanting details, producers pitching documentary ideas, and surprisingly, hundreds of strangers sharing their own stories of financial manipulation by people they'd trusted. But the most important call came Wednesday morning. Mr. Davis, this is Jennifer Martinez from Victim Services at Midwest Insurance. We've completed our review of your case. What's the verdict? All medical debt has been officially forgiven. Every penny of the $180,000. You're not responsible for any fraudulent claims submitted in your name. I sat down hard in my brother's kitchen. All of it? Every dollar. Furthermore, we're implementing new verification procedures based on Amanda's methods. Your case has helped us identify critical gaps in our fraud prevention system. Wednesday afternoon brought another call from Tom Rodriguez. The properties sold faster than projected, he said. Real estate market strong. Total recovery is $620,000. That's higher than expected. Amanda bought well and maintained everything properly. After legal fees, insurance restitution, and community refunds, you'll receive $347,000 in compensation. $347,000. From bankrupt to financially stable because I'd chosen truth over comfortable lies. There's more, Tom continued. 3 other insurance companies have contacted us about similar fraud patterns. Your case is helping investigators identify a wider network of medical fraud operations. Thursday brought unexpected validation from Pastor Williams. Greg, the church board met last night. We're establishing the Financial Abuse Survivor Support Program using our portion of the asset recovery. He handed me a detailed plan. Counseling services for people manipulated by spouses or family members, legal assistance for fraud victims, educational seminars about financial boundaries in relationships. We're calling it the Amanda Davis Memorial Fund, Pastor Williams said. Ironic, but we want something positive to emerge from this tragedy. You're naming it after her? Sometimes the worst examples make the best warnings. Amanda's story can prevent others from experiencing what you went through. Friday's surprise came from Rachel. Greg, I've been thinking about signs I missed, conversations that make sense now. She paused on the phone. Amanda always resented my success. When she got sick, suddenly she was the center of attention. I think part of me was relieved that she finally had something that made her special. You couldn't have known it was fake. But I could have asked harder questions, visited more often, insisted on meeting her doctors. I stayed away because watching someone die is difficult. It was easier to send money and feel good about helping. Rachel's honesty was refreshing after years of family dynamics built on unspoken competition. The legal resolution came Monday. Martin Clark pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and agreed to cooperate fully with federal investigators. Clark will serve 15 months in federal prison, Sarah Wilson informed me. He must pay $47,000 in restitution and perform 500 hours of community service educating people about fraud prevention. Any other accomplices? None. Amanda orchestrated this entirely herself, with Clark as her only partner. It was remarkably sophisticated for a 2-person operation. The most unexpected consequence emerged over the following weeks. A community of fraud survivors. Linda Patterson knocked on my door Saturday morning holding a casserole. Mr. Davis, I read about your story. My husband faked a disability for 2 years while I worked double shifts to support us. She held out the dish. Reading about your courage gave me strength to expose his deception. He's moved out, and I'm rebuilding my life. Similar contacts arrived daily. People financially manipulated by family members, spouses who'd discovered elaborate health lies, adult children whose parents had faked illnesses for money and attention. Amanda's fraud had accidentally created a support network for manipulation victims. The ripple effects kept expanding. Insurance companies strengthened verification procedures. Medical facilities implemented identity checks. Support groups formed in 3 states for financial abuse survivors. Sarah Wilson called with an update on the broader investigation. Your case helped us identify 12 similar fraud operations nationwide. Amanda's methods were being copied by other criminals. Your public exposure disrupted their playbook. How much total fraud? Over $3.2 million in similar schemes. By speaking up, you've helped protect thousands of potential victims. Tom Rodriguez sent me a final financial report. Community donations totaling $23,000 have been returned to donors. Insurance companies recovered their $267,000, and you've received $347,000 in compensation. What about the medical bills I couldn't pay? Forgiven completely. Your credit score is already improving. Dataflow Corp is holding your promotion until you're ready to return. By month's end, I'd received over 200 letters from people sharing their own manipulation experiences. Many cited my story as inspiration to investigate suspicious situations or leave abusive relationships. Amanda's elaborate lie, exposed publicly, had generated systemic changes protecting countless future victims. Insurance fraud costs Americans $40 billion annually, but one husband's decision to choose truth over comfort had helped reduce that number. The perfect crime had become the perfect cautionary tale. 6 months later, I was living in a new house. Not the foreclosed property on Elm Street, but a modest 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood, paid for with cash from Amanda's asset recovery. The financial transformation was obvious, but the personal change ran deeper. I'd learned to verify everything. When my new neighbor asked for help moving because he'd thrown out his back, I said, sure, but I'd feel better seeing a doctor's note first. When he looked offended, I explained that I'd learned to confirm claims before offering assistance. He never asked again, and I noticed him lifting heavy boxes just fine the next weekend.
Real love builds you up through honesty. Manipulation tears you down through lies. That became my new standard for all relationships.
I started dating again in month 4. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, the family physician who testified about Amanda's real health records during the memorial service. She divorced 2 years earlier after discovering her husband's gambling addiction. "We both know what deception looks like," she said over our first dinner. "That might make us paranoid, or it might make us wise. We chose wisdom. Jennifer and I practiced radical transparency, shared bank statements by the third date, exchanged complete medical records before becoming intimate, introduced each other to friends immediately instead of keeping the relationship private. This feels clinical," she admitted one evening. "This feels safe," I replied. By month 6, it felt like love, but love with boundaries, love with verification, love that built trust through evidence instead of demanding faith through emotion. I'd become a speaker for financial abuse awareness, addressing churches and community groups about relationship red flags. The invitations came regularly after national media coverage. The number one warning sign, I'd tell audiences, is isolation from independent verification. If someone you love prevents you from confirming their claims directly, ask yourself why. Tom Rodriguez and I co-authored a protection guide, Loving Without Losing Financial Boundaries for Couples in Crisis. Insurance companies began using it in fraud prevention training programs. The Amanda Davis Memorial Fund had helped 18 families recover from financial manipulation. Churches in 6 states had implemented similar support programs. "Your worst experience became other people's best protection," Pastor Williams told me. My relationship with Amanda's memory had evolved. I no longer hated her. I understood her psychology. Amanda had grown up feeling invisible next to successful siblings. When my overwhelming response to her fake illness taught her that being sick gave her power over me that being healthy never had, she became addicted to that control. The deception started small, exaggerated symptoms for extra attention, but my devotion taught her that illness made her the center of my world, so she escalated the lie to maintain that feeling. By the time Amanda realized the fraud had gone too far, she was trapped. Admitting the truth meant losing my worship and facing criminal charges. Continuing the lie meant deeper deception and greater risk. The stress of maintaining such elaborate fraud had literally killed her. I kept one photo of Amanda on my dresser, not from her cancer journey, but from our wedding day, healthy, happy, genuinely smiling, before the lies began. That was the woman I'd married, the woman I chose to remember. 1 year after the memorial service revelation, I received a letter from Seattle. No return address. "Mr. Davis, I read your story online. I'm a nurse practitioner who's been helping my brother fake cancer for 8 months. He convinced me he was too embarrassed to tell his wife about his diagnosis, so I created false medical records and even staged fake chemotherapy sessions. Your story made me realize I'm not helping my brother. I'm enabling fraud that will destroy his family. I'm telling his wife the truth this week. Thank you for showing that love sometimes means exposing lies, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. I filed the letter with dozens of others like it. Amanda's deception had ended with her death, but the truth I'd chosen to tell kept saving lives. Real love doesn't demand blind faith. Real love earns trust through consistent honesty. That's the boundary I'll never cross again. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like you're giving too much in a relationship without getting transparency in return, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you discovered everything you believed about someone was a lie? Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we need to verify most carefully. Trust, but always verify. Your future self will thank you.